cross court. Bogdanovich, ball fake. Bogdanovich misses on a three ball, and it's over.
The Utah Jazz have been in this situation before, a scenario where they have a dominant guard and a remarkable big man, arguably a top 5 big man in the league, paired together and at the very least seem to be very dominant during the regular season. This team without a doubt wouldn't shock anyone if they made it to the Western Conference Finals, but unfortunately they regressed this past year. Unfortunately for the Utah Jazz, this has been their pinnacle for the past 3 decades. And not to say that it's not a bad pinnacle, especially if you're a small market team, but as a result of the success of small market teams recently, the expectations for the Utah Jazz are significantly higher. And when you consider the fact that Donovan Mitchell's contract is set to expire following the 2025 to 2026 season, the Utah Jazz have about 2 seasons before we start hearing Donovan Mitchell trade rumors, if we aren't already hearing them already. The race to build a contender around Donovan Mitchell is on. And while the current roster built around Donovan Mitchell is phenomenal, it might not be enough to get them to the point where they're championship contenders. So before we get to the content, man, we're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. Make sure you check us out on Discord if you want to tell me my content sucks to my face. That's a link in the description down below. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, a huge storyline that has been kind of on our radar over the past 2 years is the relationship between the Utah Jazz 2 franchise cornerstone players, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. This all started about 2 years ago when Rudy Gobert jokingly touched a bunch of microphones while mocking how serious coronavirus truly was. And ironically, very shortly after that, not only did Rudy Gobert have coronavirus, but the entire NBA was shut down. Now, very shortly after this, we got a report during April 10th, 2020 that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell aren't on good terms after catching coronavirus, saying that there's animosity between Rudy Gobert, which at the time was considered to be the NBA's patient zero, and Donovan Mitchell, who tested positive within hours of his teammate despite showing no symptoms of the virus. Despite efforts from the team to mend the relationship between its 2 best players, Mitchell has been hesitant to forgive Gobert. And according to The Athletic, which I always tell you guys, whenever The Athletic says something, it's pretty much coming from our most reputable sources. The title of this article even says, "Behind the scenes with the Utah Jazz during the days that changed everything, Shams Charania, Sam Amick, and Tony Jones, 3 individuals that we all clearly trust tremendously. The relationship between Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell doesn't appear to be salvageable." Now, at the time, they said that there is hope that the relationship will improve over time, and the fact that there could potentially be a lot of time to sort things out, which would work out in Utah's favor. Joel Ingles at the time said, "I'm confident our team is going to be totally fine." Now, as time progressed on, we kind of ignored the storyline. Once we saw the Utah Jazz dominating during the 2020 to 2021 season, when the NBA restarted post the bubble, the Utah Jazz had one of their best seasons since the days of Deron Williams. And ultimately, we felt like maybe the relationship between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert may have been repaired. And honestly, that's what the media reported, because the same exact individual that reported the very first article that we read, Sam Amick, had an interview with Rudy Gobert in which Rudy Gobert stated that him and Donovan Mitchell talked on the phone, saying that we can't be having the media and people putting out articles about some stuff that are not helping us and helping the team. And as a result, they had a very honest phone conversation. And after that, they were able to really move forward and grow. He said that we had a very honest conversation and that's all I needed. And instead, once I told him everything that was on my mind and I heard everything that was on his mind, I knew that we could move forward. I'm not going to disclose what it was, but I knew that once we had the conversation, we could finally move forward. And it's like the saying goes, winning cures all. And I guess that was the situation last year, because winning did truly cure all. Unfortunately, the Utah Jazz got eliminated prematurely. I guess you could say primarily because of the way Rudy Gobert was utilized during their playoff series against the Los Angeles Clippers last year. I'm sure you guys remember the Terrence Mann game where Terrence Mann was practically open in the corner the entire time as a result of the Utah Jazz leaving Rudy Gobert in to protect the perimeter. And of course, this past year, the Utah Jazz didn't experience nearly the same level of success as they did last year. Whereas in 2021, the Utah Jazz finished with a 52-win, 20-loss season in a 72-game season, bear in mind, and finished with first place in the Western Conference. This past year, the Utah Jazz weren't able to notch those numbers, losing significantly more games and winning only 49 games to 33 losses, which was good enough for 5th place in the Western Conference, and they were really close to being 6th place in the Western Conference. Ultimately, they got eliminated by the Dallas Mavericks in a very valiant effort, and as a result, the relationship does kind of remain in flux. Ultimately, we saw a Rudy Gobert subtweet be put out earlier in January of this year, saying, when I watch some of these other teams like the Suns or the Warriors, these guys are a step ahead of us in terms of winning habits. They take every game personally. Devin Booker is playing his ass off defensively, and I've been watching him compared to 2 years ago. Guys like that, they buy in, and you can tell they take pride in playing defense and stopping their man, doing whatever they can defensively to stop the other team and be part of a winning culture. I think we're not there yet, but I think we're gonna get there. So ultimately, Rudy Gobert's subtweet sounds like a little bit of a jab at Donovan Mitchell, because he's not necessarily tasked with playing perimeter defense, and maybe Rudy Gobert is frustrated with the fact that he needs to cover all the weaknesses in the perimeter and correcting many of those mistakes in front of him. When Donovan Mitchell was asked about this and why he liked the tweet with Rudy Gobert's quote, he said, "We just gotta win tomorrow and that's it. We all as a group hold each other accountable, and that's his way, I guess. I'm not too concerned about it. His just happened this way and that's cool." Now, ultimately, the Utah Jazz would play phenomenal defense that night, and Rudy Gobert would give credit to the defense and the rebounding of Donovan Mitchell and Jordan Clarkson in the post-game press conference. But this brings us to where we officially are now, whereas we're already getting premature storylines of Donovan Mitchell potentially being traded to the New York Knicks after the Utah Jazz's early playoff exit, which I'm not really going to pay that any mind. I just thought that was a very funny article to show you guys. The question is, where do the Utah Jazz go from here? Quinn Snyder has been the head coach of the Utah Jazz for 8 years at this point, and without a doubt, they have experienced some success. However, it does seem like they're plateauing, and a big move needs to be made sooner rather than later. Where do Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert go from here? Do you run it back with them once again and probably fall short once again? This isn't a team that I believe can compete in the Western Conference for Western Conference supremacy. No offense, I don't think you're going to beat the Golden State Warriors with the core of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, no matter how deep you are. There's no answer for those small ball type of lineups. So what do the Utah Jazz do in this case? Do they pull the plug on Quinn Snyder, one of the most respected head coaches in the entire NBA, whose complex system was bought into by his entire team, who clearly likes coaching for the Utah Jazz? Do you trade Donovan Mitchell? Do you trade Rudy Gobert? Do you blow the entire team up? A lot is in the air for the Utah Jazz, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's many answers. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think the Utah Jazz should do. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.